diary, so they have a combination of both, which I think is really important. So I know that's the way that we work, yes.
So each child has their own individual list that they work on, and if they don't, what, do they do a spelling test on Friday and
I
each
don't do
individual?
spelling tests.
No.
What we
Oh,
do is we
okay.
send a package home, and it's generally done as homework.
Homework,
Yes.
and it runs about maybe a unit probably, and that's for me.
Yes, that we tend to send them home in 4 or 5 kind of
It's
week
like a
packages.
unit, 6-week packet that
Yeah.
they get, and they work through, and then at the end of that, you would assess them on these list words that are already there, and it's actually just assessing whether or not they know the spelling pattern. And
Yep.
then if they got that, they would go up to the next list, and then you assess them on that, and then you go up to the next one and assess them on that.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if they didn't get it, they would repeat that packet again because they haven't consolidated the spelling pattern.
Okay.
So that works, I find that works well.
Yeah.
We don't, we just test the once, let's say every 6 weeks, kind of until the next holiday almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Until the next holiday time, and then we will assess again just after the holiday time to see how we need to get ready, the package is ready for the next 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is that we're doing. So I do spelling inquiry once a week on a Thursday afternoon for about 45 minutes.
I do it on a Monday for
Okay.
about 40 minutes.
All right.
Once a week.
And I do about twice, Monday about half an hour, and then follow up on Thursday.
Okay.
Once a week.
Once a week.
Middle
Okay.
of the week, Wednesday.
So can I ask, are you guys, like, within HISAR, are you guys allocating, you know, this in grade 3 we're going to focus on these word patterns and these word groups, this is what we're going to do in grade 1, do you know what I mean? Like, is there some
We haven't really. I mean, like, even between Erica and I, like, we'll stop and chat about it, and I'll be like, oh, your kids are doing homophones. Mine haven't gotten to homophones yet, because I really want them to learn this spelling pattern, you know,
Yep.
the long A or something, or
Okay.
different vowel digraphs that make an A sound. So, but between discussion, we kind of, like, then now I've moved into homophones, where she did it earlier. We've discussed, but as for different grade levels, no, because it depends on, you always get a different group,
Yeah.
and also you might get a different group that they don't need that lesson, whereas, you know, you notice that they're not, ED is coming out as T in their spelling, so you're like, oh, I need to do an ED lesson. So you kind of look at the kids to see, in the, so if you're new to it, there's a whole kit, have you seen it at HISAR? I'll walk you through it. There's folders in the staff room, and all the kits are there, and if you're here, it's in the staff room,
Yep.
is that right? And there's all the kits there. So the kits are not by grade. You can move in and out of them, that's what he told us.
Mhm.
But you'll see, like, K, I think is the first kit.
Yeah, I think so.
That would be where you'd
Yep.
be looking around in prep. So just look in the kit and look at all the lessons that are there and see which ones maybe your kids need. Usually I am working between the kit 1 and kit 2, and sometimes K, sometimes the
Yeah.
far
Yes.
easier ones. So you kind of
And
like a phase.
You know,
You're
what's
moving
fun in
between
that
a
too
lot
is
of
that
them.
if there's something that really sparks your interest as a teacher,
Yeah.
you can, and because they'll pick up from your excitement on it too, won't they? You know, whether it's a study into the days of the week, or which is fantastic, or a study in numbers, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So what we do is we try to give. It's hard to do all of this in half an hour, but try to give kids little prompts that will lead to investigation. For example, in English, anything that has a TW has to do with the number 2. And this comes from German, and in German, anything that has a ZW, zw, and you can hear the TW in there, can't you, has something to do with 2. So almost all these words that we have in English come directly from a German word, which is really interesting, right? And so then the idea is, so then, okay, how are we going to find these words? What do they mean? What are the similarities between the English and the German words? How have things changed?
A lot of it's about the origin.
Yeah,
that you're
it's
trying
a
to
lot
find.
about the origins of words and how words are connected to other languages. So I did some things on numbers at the beginning of the year, and one of the things was this TW, and they were fascinated by all the words they could find. And then the twice, a twin,
Twilight,
20,
twin.
twilight,
What about
between.
tweet?
When you tweet something, you take something and you change it from its original.
So two.
If you
Tweet,
Tweet,
do you mean?
like a bird tweet.
comes from the
Maybe.
German word zwitscher. Tweeter. Zwitscher. Zwitschern. When the birds are zwitschering, in
They
German.
tweet to
They're
each other
tweeting.
probably.
Yes, yeah.
Two.
And so in the pack, does it have that background about TW?
Yes.
Or
Absolutely,
Yes.
it does.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
All of that origin is in there, and actually for early years, which I had the discussion with Pete Bowers when he was here last year,
Mhm.
and I was struggling as a teacher trying to do spelling inquiry because I didn't get into origin enough. And
Exactly,
I sat down and I
yes,
spoke
yes.
to him and I said, I'm really frustrated. I feel like part of your program is all about the origin and history of words. However, in grade 1, I'm barely getting into that. And he said, you know what? In grade 1, neither would I. So I would touch
Okay.
upon it,
Yes,
like I would
yes,
kind of give
yeah.
that to them. They're not inquiring into that. Whereas where I would say like the lower years, you're more inquiring about a spelling law. Like for example,
Thank
we
you,
were working
yeah.
this week with
Mhm.
like, this is a spelling law, and we've done, I think you
Yeah,
did it too.
yeah.
So there were 2 kinds of words, which I've shown people last year, the function words and the content
Yes.
words. And then like one of the laws in English is that there's only one kind of word in English that can have 2 letters or 1 letter, and that's a function word. So all I was getting kids to do was to go on a hunt around the classroom, basically for sight words, and trying to discriminate which ones were which. And they're like, oh, to and a and an and to be and we and she and all the words. It could have more than 2 letters, but it's the only. So I work more around laws and then the phonology. The sound, which 2 digraphs, what are the trigraphs that make this sound?
Yeah. Whereas I think the grade 2s and 3s, then you're starting to get
Get
into
into
your
the
etymology
origin.
and where things come from.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all those little, they're not little rules in English. All those rules about spelling, like a complete word in English cannot end in the letter V. A complete word in English cannot end in the letter U. All those kind of little things, or a word in English cannot have a letter U in front of the letter V. And
Then you get
why that is.
L-U-V and you
And so
understand
then
the laws.
following the patterns, and then from that, well, and what's our solution for it? Our solution is always the silent E, isn't it? It's our saving grace, isn't it? The silent E. That's why have, we don't say have, we say
Yeah.
have, but we have to put the E there because we can't end it in. And just that rule, putting the V and then the silent E, you've got your rule right there, don't you? And that's very grade 1 appropriate, isn't it?
And I think don't be afraid that like when I went to his workshop, you get overwhelmed. Like I don't know all these rules. I can't teach all these
Mhm.
rules. I have no idea. You have to jump in. You take one of those kits. The rules are there, and you kind of like you do an inquiry with them, and then they come up with a hypothesis. Like I would make like a column list of words they collected with a question I had started with, and then like at the bottom, what do you think? What rule would you make for this list of words? And they'll make it, and then they'll test it, and then they'll say, oh no, that can't be a rule because it didn't work with this word.
Mhm.
And then they might, and then we would come down to the actual law. So it's kind of an inquiry until you create one as a class.
It's very scientific. It's very PYP.
Yes.
Very, very much so. And they really get into it. And we work with bases and prefixes and suffixes and when do we drop this and why do we drop that and why do we double this? Why does it double here and it doesn't double there? All those kind of things. It's just, and the whole idea behind real spelling is that English is a very structured language with very specific rules about spelling, and there are very, very few exceptions to the rules. In fact, what is there a list of 20?
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
We have to find that list again, don't we?
Yeah.
Because there are literally 20 words in English that don't follow a rule. The trouble is, we don't know the rules.
So we tell children, oh, you just have to.
Yeah.
Or
Just
even
have to
when
learn
you're working with
it.
silent letters in the early years, you say, oh, KN. Well, K's just a silent letter. So he goes into all that. If you picked up his pack, it's like, no, KN is a digraph, and K and N work together to make the N sound. So you should be teaching it correct to the children. There
And there's
aren't
a
these
reason
silent
that we
letters.
use
There's
KN
T's.
in English, and it's because when the Anglo-Saxons invaded England, how many hundreds of years ago, they brought their Germanic language with them. And almost everything in English that has a KN comes from German.
Mhm.
Your Knie. All those kind of things. And it's probably we used to say it in English, this is my knee, right?
Yeah.
And it changed over the years to become that, but our spelling hasn't changed. Our pronunciation has. So, yeah.
And the kids will find exceptions to the rule, like hi, like hello, or there's a rule I searched, I can't remember the rule. But they'll find an exception to a rule, and usually that's when it was either borrowed from another language or it's something that's become slang in normal speak these
Mhm.
days.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they figure that out as well. The kids will argue against them and say, no, it's because, you know,
Yep.
hi. I think that was one of them. Because no word in English ends in an
I.
I.
That's right.
So they come up with hi and they come up with ski. Well, ski was Norwegian, right?
Mhm.
And hi is slang for hello. Hello, hi, hello, how are you? Shortened into hi.
Yeah.
And that's all in the pack. So you learn a lot as a teacher because you pick up these packs and you start reading, and your inquiry starts too.
Exactly.
I've learned so much, like just from those packs
Yeah.
alone, because you can't know it all. You pick up, there's so much in the pack. You could probably do 6 weeks with one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've become real word nerds over the years,
Yeah.
haven't we?
Yeah.
And we're always looking at things and questioning where
They
we're,
have.
you know what, that must be connected to this word, and that must be, so this must be the base, and the base must mean this, and yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all
So where do you come up with your 6-week packets for homework? Like you just go from
No.
a
It's from
different
something
book?
Gina brought, which is fantastic.
It's
Maybe you
a-
can a word about it.
What's the series
It's
called?
called Smart Words, and
Yeah.
I do believe Judith is ordering it, or has ordered it, and we're waiting for it to arrive.
Oh, super.
And was in my last school, it was used with learning support students all the way through to grade 12, but now it's here at our school because I bought it, and we're using it all the way through to grade 6, I guess, if it's being used. But
So the activities in there match the things that you choose.
it's everything. It's base words, it's suffixes,
Syllables.
prefixes,
It's the exact
homophones,
list, like the
comparative
rule-
words.
spelling rule you inquire about might not match that week, but like the
But
the
they're gonna-
structure of it, like they'll
Yeah.
still have to break up a base word with a prefix and a
Mhm.
suffix in the pack, or find small words in between, or inquire about a word's meaning.
Okay.
So yeah.
It repeats a
Is it
lot.
from the UK? Someone's trying to find
I
it
want to
online.
say it's Australian.
I think
or
it was
New Zealand.
Australian, yeah,
I think
because
so
we were
too.
looking into
I
ordering
think
it
so
last
too.
year.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Frida has a copy here because she was interested because grade 1s were using it. So I don't know if there's a copy here, but go see Frida if there's not.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I do
What
feel
is that
between the two
called?
that we have a
Smart
nice
words.
spelling program.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah,
It's
I
really
think
well
it really
done.
complements.
Mhm.
I like it because it's all differentiated. So like I have some kids right now working on they're by the alphabet, so like L, and then other kids are you know just the very beginning C. So it's nice that I don't have to always find a list and create it for them. That this has already been established and I can differentiate.
It starts with like pre-writing patterns, so you can use it as low as pre-fall prep to get
Do
there.
you find that it challenges the higher kids? as
Yeah,
well?
because when you do the testing, your kids come out at their own level, and then you might have, to manage it in the classroom, I try not to have any more than 7 levels going at one time, but
Yeah,
you
same.
might have one kid up on level, I don't know, the alphabet, like N, for example, and then you might have a student who's just come in that's starting on C, so.
Yeah.
And the higher they go, the more higher level the activities are, definitely. So
And
much so
longer,
with some of my
and-
kids now that I literally have to cross out some of the activities because they don't have time to do it all.
Or some are a little bit too difficult for kids who are high but ESL.
But higher
Right, yeah,
ESL,
yeah.
yes, exactly.
Like the day 4
Or
challenge
they're-
work,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're high level spellers, but their level of thinking does not always match some of the activities, so I go through and I cross some of them out. So, yeah.
And do you do the same, that if you assess a child after those 6 weeks and they have still not retained those spelling patterns, they would do it again?
They
have to do it
Because
again.
you get a little bit of slack from parents once in a while about why do they have to do it again, it's a waste of another 6 weeks, but I'm firm with them and like, no, they haven't consolidated that spelling pattern of AY and I need them to do it again. They're not going to move up until they get that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
So
the
how do you
only
get
slack.
these lists? So they're just, I'm just a little confused. So you pick what you want based on what you noticed from the packet, and then you go to the Gina's program and you match whatever.
No.
No.
To assess where they're at for for the spelling program
They're
that
two
we
different
use.
things.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's actually a spelling test that you give them once every 6 weeks or so, depending on how you manage it in the classroom.
Okay.
And then they have to achieve, there's 3 words per level, and they have to get all 3 words right to be considered at that level. So if then the next level they've only got 2 out of 3 words, you put them back to the level where they're achieving 3 words. That means they've achieved a spelling rule.
So it's the philosophy that's the same, it's not the spelling list of words.
Right.
Okay.
So the philosophy they're practicing between the spelling inquiry and the homework is the same. But the lists of words are going to be different.
Okay.
So, but the program's great because it finds out where they're at and what patterns they need
Okay.
to learn to work through the year.
Okay. So it starts like with low, like
Really basic
short
Dutch
vowel
word,
sounds,
simple,
and
yeah.
then okay. And how do you make sure? Sorry, I'm really monopolizing the questions. How do you make sure that you get all the sight words? Like just because they're broken up, like you have GHT and you have
They're
short
in,
vowels
Yeah,
or
with the
they work it in
levels.
through the
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah.
they work
Yeah.
it in.
Yeah.
And there's
Okay.
lots of reading requirements for that, like as they're doing the spelling, there are lots of things that they have to read using all the.
Yeah.
They have to
Basic
copy
sight
sentences
words
around,
and
like I go
copy.
to the shop, so they're practicing their sight words through all the sentences they have to write in the pack.
And that works really well with what we were just talking about with the function and the content words,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's really
They're
good.
practicing them.
So, just to show you quickly some of the activities that kids work through, and so this is obviously, this is a higher level activity. It works with the word sign, or the base sign. It's a free base because it can stand on its own. Some bases have to be attached to something all the time, don't they? What I like about this base is it's a real lesson in how whether I attach prefixes or suffixes, it can change the way I pronounce a base, doesn't it? So I can resign from my job, but something can signify. You hear how depending on my, so it's a lesson in adding a suffix can change the way I pronounce my base, isn't it? So English is so flexible that way, right? So that's what this is a lesson in that my pronunciation, it's about the meaning, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
about the
because
meaning
it can
of it.
be re-signed.
Yeah, I can re-sign my contract, or I can resign from a job, and this can signify that, and that's significant, isn't it? So we work with this kind of a thing where we literally put all kinds of, you would be amazed at what we did with my class with the base graph before Christmas. It got so complicated. And they could all take it to a certain level, and then I started adding things onto it, which was fantastic. What I like about this is that they learn, here's signature, but when I put them all together, I'm going to cross that out. And I have a reason for doing that. So I also, though, have word sums, don't I, that I'm going to work through. So I'm working here, I'm working here, and then also we do things on big charts where we work with the color strips, and we cut them so into things for different colors for prefixes and suffixes, all those kind of things in the base. So what they're doing is they're repeating the word about 5,000 times, aren't they? As they work through all these activities, which is wonderful. So here, what do you think this is about? What would that be a lesson about in that one right there? It's about how we hear things, isn't it? Right? Mm-hmm. So this is a wonderful website that Pete Bowers uses. Pete Bowers is kind of the more, this was all originally designed by this crazy French guy called Melvin Ramsden, and I went to a workshop by him when I was working in Africa, and he had been contacted by the International School in Brussels to create a spelling program. And so he came up with these kits. Pete Bowers is a Canadian fellow out of Kingston, and he then takes it and makes it more practical. If you go to Melbourne, you kind of go crazy with all of the philosophy and all these kind of things, but Pete Bowers brings it down to earth and tells you how to teach it.
The teacher of it.
Yeah. So he has all kinds of things. One of the things I really like, you have to scroll, where am I looking here? Looking for the word searcher. You know, he just changed his website, didn't he?
Does look different.
Yep. Okay, that's okay, I'll
Stuff.
find it another time. So I get on there, for example, and I get onto the word searcher, which takes me to a website built by Neil Ramsden, who is a British fellow, and he literally is inputting every word he can think of into this online site, a database. So for example, I did a thing with my grade 4s last year, and it was about the base P-L-E-A-S-E. Please. But what I did is I searched in it, and I found only words that had P-L-E-A-S. So I can get all the words that have that. I whip them off, I put them on a list in front of the kids, and I said, tell me which words don't belong on this list. And they had to really look through it, and it was the word please, as in her pleas were unheard, right? So they had to look through it and find which ones didn't fit, and then we start putting groups into words and how they go together. You got please and pleasure and pleasant and unpleasant and all those kind of things. So if I had an hour, I would take you through a full set of lessons, but this is just to give you a real taste and hopefully a chance to sit down with one of us and see how we start out lessons and how basically an inquiry needs about 3 or 4 weeks, I would say, before I'm happy that we've got through everything and got through all the projects and all the inquiring and such. So, and it builds on itself. It's scary at first. It's really quite scary because I don't know the rules. Well, you learn as you go, and that's just it. You're like, you know what? I don't know that myself. So when I was in this week-long thing with Pete Bowers, we just learned so many great things, and it was all about these etymology dictionaries that he had in front of us, and the online Mac dictionary, which is fantastic as well. But you're just constantly grabbing the dictionaries and like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And it was just amazing. He would just throw out these little things, and he'd be like this, and it would be fascinating. You'd want to learn more. The origin of the word porcelain comes from the French word porc, P-O-R-C. Don't record this. And why is that? It's because the first pieces of porcelain that were made resembled a sow's vagina. So that's how it's all about its etymology.
Whoa.
Yes.
I think the hard thing that I found when I had tried it was that I think I didn't know enough rules myself.
Yes, yeah.
And then when words started to appear and we're asking kids to use different prefixes and suffixes, you know, things like, I remember we did it for our three-way conferences last year, and kids were adding suffixes like kindable. Well, what does kindable mean? Kindable means when you are nice to someone. And because they don't have enough language experience with English, they make up words which seem absolutely plausible, and they give you a good reason why that's a proper word, but it's not a word. And I think that's the part where I need to be more, more controlling. Yeah, more controlled about how I deliver the lesson, because
It does become hard because they do make
they
up.
make words up.
Grids, they make up a lot of words,
So,
but the first
I
thing
just
he
got
says
onto
is use
my-
it in a sentence. Can you use it in a sentence?
But they do. But they because they
so then
don't.
you have to go to the
Now
next
let's
step
test it.
of looking.
Let's go to the online dictionary on our MacBook. So I've got kind, and I'm gonna try your. You know what? It doesn't work.
But I think when you've got a second grade student who to go through all those steps and then to have to look they are already gone. It's lost.
In the lessons I observed him teaching in Switzerland, he actually was working with a grade 1 class, which was great for me, so I got to see and they were looking into the origin, and a couple students were doing that in the group that he was in, and after asking, can you use it in a sentence, he actually said, well, I'm just going to tell you, because it's grade 1, how long does it take them to go get a dictionary to look it up? He said, I'm just going to tell you, we can't use that in a sentence, keep going. He just stopped it there, so I don't think there's anything wrong with saying,
it didn't
you're the
demotivate the
expert,
kids.
I'm sorry, no, we don't use that in a sentence, good try. Take that off your list and keep going.
Because that's what a real scientist does, don't
Yeah.
you? You test your theory, and you're going to find out, you know what, that was wrong. And I can find out it's wrong from a whole bunch of sources, right?
But it's hard for a young grade 1, grade 2
when
student to go take them 20 minutes to look it up in the dictionary. So sometimes there's nothing wrong with
But
that.
I also wonder, will the child who chooses 3 different words with the base kind that are all made up and none of them are real words, are they going to go, oh well, this is a crap system because I can't make it work? Because I don't have enough language experience to make sense of this information.
Then maybe that child's looking into the wrong kind of words. I'm not sure.
Or I would just say, I mean, I don't know. I have stopped students and said, no, that's not a word. You know, keep going. I think if you just make it snap and short and quick like that for that age group, that's okay. They're at the age where they're trying to learn if they're words or not. They don't know if they're words or not.
I mean, for the English-speaking kids, it hasn't been an issue, but for kids that
Agreed. Yeah. It's
I
hard.
think too, I see the kids that I had last year and I did really basic stuff with, now in Peter's class, and I can hear it through the wall, and the ka-chinging that goes on, and all the things that you've got going on in your classroom with spelling.
Yeah.
I see the growth in them, I don't know, I just see it as being it's very basic at our grade level, and then the maturity kicks in.
But I think that's where I need to realise that in second grade, or first grade or prep, it's going to be, there's going to be a little bit of inquiry, but it's going to be teacher-led, really structured
Amen.
inquiry.
Yes,
and maybe
yes.
when you get up to
Yeah,
your
I
level,
agree
then you
with
guys
you.
can
Yeah.
let that go a little bit.
Yeah.
But
You're
Yeah.
going to be giving them the lists. You're going to be
Yeah.
doing
Mine
this.
are
You're going to
very,
be,
I
yes,
mean, it is,
agreed.
it's, like I put a question on the board and it's like, what do you notice about any words that have Q spelled in them? That's the only question I put on the chart paper.
Okay.
They go around the class, they collect all the Q words with Q in them, and then they're like, they take a highlighter and they start seeing if they can find any patterns, and they're like, every Q has a U that follows it. We make it a law. It's that
Okay.
simple.
Alright.
Yeah.
So it is that simple in grade 1. It's a very simple inquiry. I don't go as far into the origin because they do get lost, and they're not ready for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's what I was talking to Pete Bowers about, and he's like, no, I agree. He's like, obviously there's some origin, but you tell them that. They wouldn't go on an inquiry about it.
Yeah.
So it's different between early years and then the upper primary. It's a big jump.
Yeah.
Mine are
Sure.
really just looking at spelling patterns and the phonology, definitely. The digraphs, the trigraphs, and you can inquire into that with them.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
That's one thing I did in my classes here. We have the Kaching list, and it's irregular verbs.
Yes.
You
I'm
know-
doing it
yeah.
too. Yeah.
And so I decided I was going to get that word brang.
Change to the regular verb.
I'd heard it a few times, and so I just put up this big piece of paper, and at the top I wrote Kaching. And I wrote bring, brang, brought. And
Okay.
so it was Lal. She goes, I rang this. I said Kaching. And they went, what? And somebody went, I saw that. And they went over there and they went, ah. So after a while, kids started, I would write something down, and then kids started just writing it down, and they're still into it. They go home, they Kaching their parents. They Kaching brothers and sisters. They Kaching themselves now.
That's what I heard.
Daphne was like,
Daphne
she goes,
Kaching.
Kaching, Kaching. She goes, I said that wrong. Yes, and it's all about irregular verbs. And then Alice asked the other day, she Kachinged somebody while she was editing a story, and she goes, Kaching, and I said, what did you find? And she goes, well, it was more high, but it should be higher. She goes, we need a different kind of Kaching list. Oh, yes, yeah. So yeah. So and you know what? It's helped to clean up their grammar. Yeah, which is great. And the parents say, my child is Kachinging me at school, at home. Yes, which is fun. Yeah, it's very very fun. They Kaching each other and they Kaching themselves, and it's time to stop. Thanks.